Hi guys. It's been a very long time. In fact, it'll be 7 years since I've posted on my YouTube channel on April 15th. Yes, I haven't posted anything since April 15th, 2014, which that last video was me singing Let It Go. So in 7 years, a lot has happened, as you can imagine. That happens with everybody. So I think we should start off from the beginning. When I posted my last video, I was still in a relationship with someone who I thought I was going to be with for the rest of my life. And that ended up not happening. But that's okay. It wasn't meant to be for us. And that happens. We still talk every now and then. We're not super close, but we're friends. We're civil with each other, and that's what's important. But shortly after that relationship ended, I got into a relationship with a man who I thought the same thing, that things were going to be perfect for us forever. And I thought long enough about that we ended up getting married. So we got married in August of 2016. Unfortunately, things don't always stay perfect, and things don't always stay the same. Some situations came up that ended up causing irreconcilable differences between us, and we split. Now, we didn't get divorced right away, and that happens, but we have since divorced, and that's the important thing. But in the time before we divorced, I started seeing somebody else, and he also started seeing somebody else, and that's okay. We were both perfectly happy with the fact that we weren't perfectly happy, and that was okay. So I started dating a guy who had a little girl, and I thought I was ready to fill those shoes. Her mother had unfortunately passed due to unfortunate circumstances, and I think the best way to describe it is I thought that he was ready. I thought that I was ready. And for a while there, we were. Unfortunately, people hide things. And that's something that everybody does. Now, what they hide is a different story. If you hide narcissistic tendencies or abusive tendencies, obviously that's not a very good thing. Now, this guy never got physically abusive with me. He never laid a hand on me. He never hurt me. I never was afraid of him physically hurting me. On the other end, he was very mentally and verbally abusive. But I stayed with him because in my mind, I thought that was the best that was going to happen for me. I had married a man who we didn't end up working out. And that put a lot of self-doubt in my mind. I thought very little of myself. And the guy that I started seeing, he damaged me more. But there was good days that I thought, one day the good will outweigh the bad. And then I ended up in the hospital. Not due to him directly. And again, he never laid a hand on me. He never got abusive with me. But I ended up in the hospital. And when I needed him the most, he was not there. So after being in the hospital and being released, I had made the decision to move back in with my mom, which is probably the best decision I could have made. And as much as it's unfortunate that I'm still here living with my mother, things in the last 3 years have gotten so much better. So the first thing I'll start off with is this. I hear people all the time talk about you're going to marry your best friend, or you could develop feelings for your best friend. I didn't really think that that would actually happen to me, but it did. So I'll take you back, September of 2021 will be 9 years. I was on a face group support page for partners of female to male transgenders. And I had commented on a post to this one girl who had commented on something. That was 9 years ago. I can't really remember what it was. But I ended up getting close to her and we ended up talking and becoming friends. And over time, we kind of started Skyping and not just messaging. And on one of the Skype calls, she asked if I would like to meet her boyfriend. And I said, of course, absolutely. I would love that. Little did I know, the minute he stepped into the screen and into the camera, that I was kind of already screwed at that point. So I met him. And he was lovely. He was great to talk to. He was very friendly, funny, down to earth. And he was cool. He was really cool to talk to. Well, then things with them ended. And at first, I'm happy to admit that at first I sided with her, with what happened, because I had only heard her side of the story. Then I, in fact, posted a video on YouTube about how I had her back. And then I talked to him. And it ended up being that she was in the wrong. And I shouldn't have had her back. And I ended up not talking to her any longer. And I continued talking to him. And over time, I kind of thought, we're probably not going to stay friends. Because we just don't talk that often. But every time he ended up making a new Facebook, he always added me. Always made sure to add me on Facebook. And every now and then we would talk. It would be a few months in between, anywhere between 3 to maybe 9, we would communicate. But every time that I would see him on Messenger on Facebook, I'd say, hey, oh my gosh, how are you doing? You're alive. What's going on? And our friendship would pick up right where it had left off. Like nothing had changed, like no time had passed. So it was really cool. And over time, we started talking more, started getting more friendly, kind of opening up to each other a bit more. And we saw each other go through good and bad relationships. I remember telling him that I was getting married, and he told me very honestly he was happy for me, but didn't tell me that he thought it was a little too soon and maybe it shouldn't have happened. And now I know that that was the case. But I also saw him go through relationships where I was supportive, but I didn't want to be. And when you're friends with somebody, sometimes you just need to be supportive. Whether you're happy for them or you think it's wrong, you just need to be. So I always was, and he always was. Then, a fateful day, March 14th, 2018, I was up one night, I couldn't sleep, and I saw him on Messenger, and I reached out to him just to see how he was doing. And we talked for a while. And then I decided that it was time for me to be 100% honest with him again, because I had told him this before, but I reminded him that I had feelings for him, that over the time that we talked, I had developed feelings, and thought he was handsome, and I thought he was wonderful and funny and down to earth and loving and caring, all those things. And I took a Hail Mary, and I asked him if he would be willing to try, just to try. And he agreed. Now, to anybody listening to that part of this video, you're probably sitting here thinking, that's not that big of a deal. You're asking someone to just try being in a relationship with you. The thing that made this difficult and a risk to say yes to is that he lives in Australia And he still lives in Australia to this day. So, a very long distance relationship. In fact, from where I live to where he lived at the time, it was about 15,000 miles. But we still gave it a shot. And things went really good at the very beginning. And they continued to be very good. For once, I can say that as time went on, it's not like something changed for the negative. It changed for the better, which was wonderful. So I remember us talking about how great it would be if he came here to see me, or if I went there to see him, one way or the other. And then he messaged me one night in September of 2018 and told me that he had booked his flights to come and see me and my family for Christmas of 2018. And I was so overwhelmed. I was out with my friends. We were out at karaoke and I was having a good time, and he told me, and I had to step outside and like take a deep breath and call him and happy cry because I was just so overwhelmed. But it was amazing. So we started a countdown and we started getting ready. And then on December 5th, he flew out from Australia and he came here. He ended up being delayed in LA for about 5 hours. So originally I was supposed to pick him up at like 5 o'clock at night. Ended up picking him up at like 10 or 11 at night that night. And he was here for a month. And we did so many amazing, wonderful things. I got to show him around my hometown. He got to meet all of my family. We went and cut down a Christmas tree. He saw snow for the first time in his entire life. He, got to experience the States in any way that I could give for him. And we did little things. We went on a carriage ride. We went to movies. We went bowling. I took him to karaoke. We went to arcades for dates. We did a lot. And then we celebrated Christmas together and New Year's. And on New Year's, he proposed to me. And I said yes. I've known this man for so long, and I knew how I felt about him. I knew how he made me feel. So I said yes. Then after New Year's, we went to Chicago, and he was so excited. And we took him to the Shedd Aquarium and everything, and he had such a good time. But then a couple days later, he had to go home. And that was really hard. But we had made a promise that we would try every 6 months to see each other. And we ended up making that happen. And in July of 2019, he came back for another month. And in that time, he was here for my dad's birthday. He just missed my birthday. But he was here for my dad's birthday, and he was here for his birthday. And that was great. I was so happy that I could do something for him for his birthday while he was here, because that was just so exciting for me. And we did a lot of more things. We took him to Milwaukee to go to German Fest, which he had such a good time. And we went and saw my family in Galena again, and he loves going out there. It's always such a good time. But we get to do a lot of things together. Every time that we're together, we get to do so many things. But then he has to go home again, and that's always the most difficult part. But the next plan was that I was going to be going to Australia. And I can tell you, since I was a little girl, I have always wanted to go to Australia to see the animals, to see the environment, everything. I just always wanted to go to Australia. So it was a huge thing for me. And I ended up going in March of 2020. And I was only able to be there for 2 weeks. But I got to do so much in 2 weeks. I got to go meet all of his family that I'd only seen on video chats, which was amazing. And meet his nieces and his nephew, and meet his brothers and their wives, and meet his parents and some of his friends. And it was amazing. I got to experience a country that I never in my wildest dreams would have gotten to experience. I got to feed kangaroos and wallabies. I got to pat a koala and see dingoes and pet the possums out there, which are not like their American cousins. They're soft and they're fluffy and they're fun to pet, and they come to humans, which is amazing. And we got to celebrate our 2-year anniversary together, which was amazing. But then I went home. And I actually got back to the States a day before lockdown started. If I had stayed in Australia another day, I would still be there today because they are still in lockdown in the States, are still in lockdown. Now it's February of 2021. And it's been almost a year since we've seen each other. And it's been so difficult. It's been so hard. But we do everything we can to make it as easy as possible, as normal as possible. Every weekend we have a video date where that's all we do all day. With the time difference, it's night for me and day for him. It's 15 hours difference in time. But we sit just for hours and we talk and we get to see each other face to face. We message each other through Facebook Messenger every single day. We try to have a phone call every single day. So we do what we can. But at the beginning of the year this year, right at the beginning of January, we found out that K1 fiancé visas are a high priority right now. And we decided that we're going to start the process. It takes about 6 to 9 months if you get approved and you go through with everything. But we're going to try. But I want to give a little perspective on long distance relationships because they're not easy. They're not fun. They're difficult. So here's a little perspective for you. Between where I live and where he lives is 9,665 miles. I live in Illinois, so I'm going to give some perspective with the city of Chicago. If you were to go from north to south in Chicago, from the north end of Chicago to the south end, it's 25 miles. So you would go north to south 386.6 times. That is the distance between where I am in Illinois and where he is in Australia. So it's a lot. Flights are very, very long. For the most part, about 20 hours in a plane with very little layover time in between. When I flew over in March, I had a 4-hour flight from Chicago to LA, about a 2-hour layover, and then 16 hours on my flight from LA to Melbourne. And he lives in Melbourne, so luckily I didn't have to take any more flights. So they're very long, they're very tedious. But when you love somebody, you do it. You do whatever you have to. And right now, that's where he and I are at. We are doing everything we can. We have GoFundMes set up to help with the finances for the fiancé visas because the process is not cheap. It's not easy. It's very strict. If you get anything a little bit off, they could deny you. If you forget one little piece of evidence, it could be put on hold for another 9 months, not including the wait time after that if they decide, yeah, they're going to let you go through with it. So if you are lucky enough to be with your partner all the time, or for most of the time, or you can see them whenever you'd like to, really don't take advantage of that. Long distance, especially like this, is so not easy, and there's only so many things you can do to make it as normal as possible. But when you love someone, you do what you have to do. I can't say that enough. When you are in love, when you have someone that you want to spend the rest of your life with, you will do anything in your power to be with them all the time. Our relationship, even after the visa and he's here, is not going to be easy because we want to have a family, and that's going to be a process too. with adoption and sperm donors and those kinds of things, it's not going to be an easy process. But I know with him by my side that I can do it. So don't take for granted the time that you have. I know a lot of people, when COVID lockdown started, were complaining about being stuck with their husbands or boyfriends or whoever. And all I wanted to say is, my God, do you know what I would do to be with my fiance, to be stuck with him? I would do anything. So just don't take those things for granted. Just don't take the time you have for granted, because it's never guaranteed. It is never guaranteed. So after 6, almost 7 years of not being on YouTube, here's the first video. There will obviously be more, because I have a lot of updates. I'm in school to be an esthetician. I only waited forever to do it. Some of my first videos on here are makeup videos, and I only waited forever to become an esthetician. But here I am, and I'm doing it. I've gone through a lot of things in my life that have traumatized me and scarred me for the rest of my life. And I will happily talk about those things. But I figured, why not give a personal update on where I sit, where I stand in life right now. And then I can go from there for you guys. So, with one last final note, here I am in Australia with my fiance. That's not going to unblur for you guys. Oh well. But I'm happy that I have proof of being in Australia with him, because it's amazing. I still feel like I'm dreaming when I think about that. It's insane. So I will keep updating you guys, but I'm happy to be back here, and once he's here, I will be posting videos with him as well. So have a good one, guys, and stay safe with everything going on in the world. If you're in Illinois, stay safe because of the cold. It's crazy. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.